Hey, good morning, everybody. I guess it could be lunchtime if you're in the East Coast, or in the evening if you're joining us from the EU or somewhere else. But my name is Heath Spencer. I'm the CEO of TraitWare. I'm joined today here with Chris Canfield, our Director of Technology, and we're here to talk about something that is still a needed item out there in the world of authentication. And yet, as most of you know, or some of you may not know, our passion is to remove passwords and to move away from shareable secrets and to go entirely passwordless. However, we're here today to talk about OTPs, or one-time passcodes. And a lot of people don't think about these as a shareable secret, but really, if you have to know them and enter them as a person at any given time, it becomes shareable in that moment, even if it's just for a 30-second window. And which is why we're passionate about moving people to passwordless MFA. But we know that it's a journey to get there, and that there's still going to be situations that OTPs are required. Even and I'll openly admit, even in our own company, we have maybe 5 to 10% of applications where Chris and I still need to use an OTP. So we have built that into the TraitWare solution, so you can have an all-in-one source, place to do, passwordless MFA is our native or primary authentication method. And then for those 5 to 10% of applications that still require an OTP, why we have it built and what's unique about the way we've done it to still make it phishing resistant. So with that, Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you, and
Sure.
as the key driver of evolving this type of technology in the TraitWare platform, why do OTPs matter?
Sure.
What do we need to help people understand about them?
I think a quick bit of history first. So you think about where passwords started. You started with just a username and a password into a system, whatever it was, the 50s, 60s, something like that. And then people decided, oh, you can share a password. That's not good. We should do something about that. So they didn't think at that time, hey, let's go passwordless. The technology maybe wasn't quite there yet. So they thought, okay, we'll add something else on top of that, right? Maybe that's another password, right? Some other password or a PIN code or some other type of verification or something like that. And then, of course, everybody started having cell phones, and then some of you probably have these. I have them for some of my personal, applications that I sign into. You're required to get a text message to a phone. I know Google, I think, was requiring a text message to sign into one of their website, one of their services recently. Like you have to have a phone. So you're getting text messages, right? And then the government said that doesn't work very well. And there's SIM issues with people stealing SIM cards and being able to steal the codes that are sent to your phone, even though banks still use them, which they should probably move away from that. But again, this takes time. So then there's other layers that got put on top of that, and then OTPs came around, and there are different OTP apps out there that can service. This is where you get a code that's on a timer, and it's changing every minute or so, and then you're typing that into a box after you type your username, password, and then this OTP code. So it's really just additional layers and layers. People have tried to figure out ways to add one that is more secure, I suppose, that is less likely to be hacked. But as Heath mentioned, it's still, at the end of the day, it's still a shareable secret. So yes, there's progress, as maybe you could say it's been made. It's better than just a password, but at the same time, now you're just layering things, which, okay, maybe a little bit more secure, but now it's more cumbersome for the user. It's still shareable. It's not really a streamlined experience. And again, it's understandable. Technology evolves and moves slowly sometimes. And as we've said, we still have to use some OTPs internally. And we figured, if we're going to have to support OTPs, we have to help support ourselves and our customers. Well, we want to be there and partner with you guys to help you along that journey and provide. If we're going to have to provide an OTP, we want to provide the best OTP service that you can possibly have. So that's what we've been working on. That's what we've been building, and we're happy to announce that we've released it on both platforms, on iOS and Android. So a little bit of an introduction there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I think that we've got a little bit of history, and I think that if people want to go get a laugh around thing, there's a great comedy routine by a comedian named Michael McIntyre that talks about the evolution of passwords and how they're our creation and we cherish them, and then we got told that they weren't strong enough and we had to add these special characters to them, and the evolution of that. And I'm going to kind of ruin the joke here, but the funny part is we all somewhere in our need to add a special character, added the exclamation mark, right? And so, you know, yeah. So then, go somewhere in your phrase or whatever you're using, that's probably in there or has been used at some point. Until now, they tell you, well, your password's not strong enough and you can't use one that you've used in the last 6 months or 12 months, and you got to come up with something totally new, which is why it's extremely frustrating for us as humans and why we have built passwordless MFA at TraitWare to solve that frustration. And so, but moving forward, I'm excited for you to give a demo to the crowd today on how TraitWare does OTP and show how that works. Could we maybe talk about why OTP, one-time passcode, or what should maybe be better defined as app-based authentication versus, I know you just mentioned the government said SMS is not secure.
Right.
Why is moving to app-based authentication better than using an SMS? And how can a user use that in a way that is less likely to be captured by somebody else or phished from them?
Yeah, no, that's a great. Yeah, sure. So I think as we've both been talking about now, so SMS is where you enter your phone number and it confirms the possession of your phone. That can be good for some things, but when you're sending OTPs, say to your bank or different services over and over again, there is an inherent risk that that someone can capture that SMS message. There are SIM attacks where they essentially clone your phone and they try to steal your phone number and then they get them sent to you to there, or someone else could ask you for that. That I've had friends that their parents have been in situations where somebody called them and said, oh, we're going to send you a code, but what they've really done is they've stolen the password from somewhere and they've sent that person the code, right? And then that person will give them the code over the phone. And that's not good.
And to be clear, that's all SMS based.
SMS based, yeah, SMS based, absolutely, yeah.
And so can you clearly define the difference of why or how moving to app-based authentication, like using an authenticator app, whether that's TraitWare or one of the other ones that's out there, what's different or why is that much stronger?
No, yeah, the quick difference is someone else, if they steal your password, they can trigger an SMS to your phone. And you might think, oh, my bank's doing that. My bank is doing that to me. Somebody's sending me this thing and I need it. And then they'll call you and ask for it right away. And it's happening on their timeline, not yours. When you have the OTP on your phone, you are the one, you are initiating. No one's calling you. You'd never give that to anybody. You're initiating the login. You're just using it. You're using the OTP that's on your phone in your app that has your OTPs in it. And it's a closed system, so you're not involving anybody from the outside, and you're verifying that it's you. If you use an app like ours, you're also authenticating to and we'll show you the demo in a second. You're authenticating to the app and proving that you are the one that has the right to even access those OTPs to begin with. They're not just sitting out there, right? So
yeah, so you made a couple statements there that I kind of want to flush out or pull out to make sure the crowd hears why certain things are important. And you made a statement that with TraitWare, you need to authenticate to the application, the mobile app that's on your phone, to then even get access to read the OTP, right? So you got to prove you are you. With TraitWare, we predominantly use biometrics to do that, whether that's a fingerprint or a Face ID, etc. You can use a photo pin with TraitWare to prove you are who you are. You can layer those. Could we maybe talk about why it's important to maybe keep your OTP separate from where you store your password? Because a lot of people today are using password management tools like a vault, and some of those vaults offer you to do the OTP in the same vaults for convenience. And is there a reason why you would want to keep those separated? I kind of look at it as if we go back to growing up as a child, I had two different keys for my house, right? I had a deadbolt key and a net primary key. The problem was, our parents didn't think about this, but if I put both those keys on the same key ring and I lose the key ring, I still gave away both keys. So, as a legacy way of thinking about it in the real world, having both keys on the same key ring is maybe not a good idea. And can you maybe talk about that?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, don't keep your keys on top of the safe. Just don't do that.
Yeah.
That doesn't work, right? That doesn't work. So instead, like that's like keeping your keys in your password vault. I mean, your OTPs in your password vault. It's like keeping your keys next to your keys. In other words, if
Yeah.
someone can get into your password vault, well, is it really an OTP at that point, or is it just a second password next to your first password? It's your two keys, like Heath on his keyring. So
Bingo.
having
Yeah.
your OTPs in a separate resource helps ensure that if one of them gets compromised, well, then nobody can get into it. Sometimes in the cryptography world, you call this a split key type thing. You have essentially two different pieces of information in two different locations. Makes it more difficult to compromise whatever you're trying to get into. But just for us, just keep them in a different place, right? If somebody gets into whatever reason to get into your vault and you happen to be using an OTP, well, then they won't be able to get anywhere. They'll get your username, they'll get your password, they'll say, hey, give me an OTP. No SMS to go steal from you, and they don't have access to your OTP because it's on an app that on your phone that you've got, right? That you're in
Yeah.
possession of. So that pretty much solves that problem. It's just the best practice.
Awesome. So, I know that there's other frameworks out there. Dr. Chase Cunningham always talks about zero trust frameworks, and a simple principle in there is just segmentation, right? You got to segment them. You use the analogy of split keys, separating those out, right? And so,
Yeah.
I think that that's a really good thing. In fact, hopefully none of you have ever experienced this. Another, human candid, honest example is my wife and I one day made the mistake of we were stopping at a friend's house just to grab something real quickly, left the car key in the car momentarily, car got stolen. Insurance didn't want to cover it because the car key was in the car, right? So don't leave your keys where they can be used inside the thing that they're supposed to be protecting, right? So
Yep.
awesome. So do you want to maybe this is where we lead into, you can talk about how to set up an OTP and lead
Sure.
why, and within that, show how you would set one up within TraitWare, why TraitWare is maybe different beyond just trying to segment where your passwords are saved and where your OTP is. Why is using an OTP with TraitWare different, and maybe that can be highlighted as you're showing like how to set one up and then how to
Yeah.
use one, and then also what are some differences? I know a lot of the other OTP apps have now evolved into also allowing recovery. Like if you lose your mobile device, how do you recover them?
Sure.
And then leading into, the next steps of that. After you set one up, how do you get it back if you lose it?
Sure. All right. I think let me know when you can see my screen, Heath. Is it being shared?
It's up. Yeah.
Oh, it's
Got
up.
it.
Cool. All right. So a
Yep.
lot of people have probably done this before. So I'm not trying to show you anything necessarily new, but I'm trying to show you the way that it just works with our app and answer some of the questions he was bringing up. So this is just Dropbox. Assume you've signed into Dropbox with your username and your password, and you're trying to now add an OTP. And you can see on the left is my screen here. This is all live, guys. So I'm taking a chance here. All right, everybody, just bear with me. I'm doing this live. You never know what can happen. That's part of the excitement of this. So
But
okay,
good thing you're brave.
I'm a professional. That's right. I'm brave. So okay, so going into Dropbox, go to security, and if you want to add, and every website's different. Everybody's a little different how they do this, but this is pretty much how they go. So you want to add a two-factor. They call it two-factor authentication here, security key or code. So I'll click on. It might ask for a password here. It's going to autofill the password, assuming you have a password for the service we're talking about. That's what we're dealing with here. And then you have different options. SMS, don't do that one. No. Authenticator app, yes. So click that one. You're going to get this QR code, and then you can see on the left I've got the phone, just the Android app. Open TraitWare up. Now we've already registered an account with TraitWare. If you've already got an account registered with us, this will be your regular account that you log into, and then you log into the account with the biometric. So I'll click on the button. You'll see it'll say ask for my fingerprint because it's an Android device. I'll do that, and it'll go to the OTP menu. We don't have any OTP set up because this is for the demo, right? So then I'll go to click the button on the top right, add via QR code. So you just scan a QR code like this, scan it there. Let's see if I can get it scanned on the picture correctly without a glare. Hopefully it goes good. Live demos, never know. Let's see if I can get closer. Okay, hold on a sec. Oh, there we go. There we go. I really got to get close on that. There you go. Okay, so and it just shows the information. You can do things like change the icon color and maybe change the account name if you have multiple accounts for the same service, that kind of thing. You probably won't need to do a whole lot of this here. You click save, and then you get the number comes up, the one we're all kind of familiar with, and the countdown timer of panic. This is the one I'm not a big fan of, but you have to do that. This is just the way they work. We don't have any control over that. So you type the thing in, before you get a panic attack, and then you've confirmed it, right? I just entered it in there. Might ask you for some recovery codes, a phone number, enter a security key at the secondary phone number. I'm not sure that's a great idea. Again, it's going to rely on SMS, so I would just do skip for now. I might grab these codes here and put them somewhere. But again, if you put these in your vault, well, now you've stored these recovery keys next to your other keys. So this is the thing you actually might want to put into some sort of a safe or something like that. This isn't a real account, everybody, so don't go. It's not worth stealing these. Don't worry about it. Not a big deal. Okay, so there we go. So 2-factor is ready to go. Done, right? So every time I log in now to this service, it's going to ask me for my OTP. So I'll try to do this. Let's see if this works. Normally with TraitWare, I would click on this Google button here, right? And it would just log me in with the QR code. If you guys aren't familiar with what we do, we have passwordless access to all your web services like Dropbox or any services that support identity standards for enterprise stuff. And that's a QR code login or maybe a notification confirmation. So here, I'll just go through the old-fashioned way of doing it with a password. Yeah, so it pops up here, autofill kind of thing. Get rid of that. And then it's going to ask me for, the code, right? This is the code. Fortunately, you just clicked over here, 744-650. Again, you guys have probably seen this. You can trust the computer. Use methods like Face ID or QR code. Set up a passkey. Maybe you want to do that. There's a whole different discussions about passkeys. We won't do that right now. And then you're in, right? So that's the deal. And you can turn them on and turn these on and off. But that's generally how it works. So now you've got your passkey in our app. So if you close the app down, right, exit out of it. Now the OTPs are hidden behind, not hidden. They're locked away in your TraitWare app. So it's not an app that someone could just go and open like a web browser or something like that. You click the button to open it, and then you have to authenticate again. They're not just going to show up here. Some of the apps will just show up on the screen. Some of the other ones might have a lock. But if you're with an enterprise, well, it'd be nice to have all of the resources we can provide you in one place. So click on this, right? Again, sign in with the fingerprint, and there your OTP is. But you also have access to the different apps you might have available through TraitWare, the standard QR login, that kind of thing. Everything consolidated into one place. Now, again, you might say, well, I thought you said it was not good to consolidate things or not have all your keys in one place. Well, we're not doing that because it's all behind your biometric, all on your phone, and you have to authenticate to the phone. Of course, the whole TraitWare process behind the scenes too. So that's why it's okay to use TraitWare. It is actually a really super secure way to do it. I think Heath, also you mentioned about recovery. Now it didn't do it this time because I've already been doing some demos and stuff and testing this out. But the first time you would go add an OTP, it'll actually ask you if you want to back it up, and you can see it in the settings over here. It'll say OTP vault backup and recovery. You can kind of see that there. You have backup and recovery settings, automatic backup. So automatically syncs your tokens every 24 hours. You can also recover it if you lose your phone or you get a new phone and you want to reinstall TraitWare. Then you can just go when you onboard again to TraitWare, you'll be able to restore all of your keys, all of your OTPs back to your app. So of course we made it secure. All your OTPs are encrypted at rest, so those can't be stolen. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, we got probably people are pretty familiar with this process, but just wanted to show what it looked like in our apps.
Awesome. So just to kind of go back and highlight a couple of things I want to make sure the crowd's aware of. So TraitWare is predominantly focused on workforce identity, right, and business grade solutions. OTPs are extremely common in your consumer apps and personal apps. If you have TraitWare at your place of business or you're an employee is using TraitWare, you could potentially use OTPs for some of your personal applications. That would come down to corporate policies, how they want those mixed or there. And then just a highlighted quick reminder is TraitWare's goal and vision is to move as many applications as possible. And in most use cases, for most businesses, we're seeing anywhere from an 80 to 90% of your primary applications can move to a passwordless MFA login, which uses all of the zero trust frameworks of segmentation across each component of how we deliver your identity back to that service. Even though you as the user get to log in 2 touches, no password, no typing. And then when you do need an OTP, you are going to be less likely to make a mistake with those because you're only going to have a limited number of applications now. So if you have 10 applications, maybe you have 1 or 2 OTPs. If you have 100 applications, then you could have 10 to 20 OTPs. You know, it's all percentages, right? In most businesses, I think the average number of applications any employee uses is somewhere between 12 to 20 for doing their job, right? At work. And so you know, the goal, and on average, we would think that you would end up with maybe 4 to 5 OTPs, and it is much easier to pay attention to those being used correctly, less likely to be phished if the other 80 to 90% of your applications are being logged in with passwordless MFA. And so, you know, I haven't seen any questions come in from the audience. I do know that we have some live audience, but a lot of
let me
these.
address. I got a question.
Yeah.
I got something to address real quick. So if you guys notice, this is one of the. It's a convenience, but also a risk. So you notice when I went through the process, if you go back and look at it, it said at the end, it said, "Hey, do you want to use a passkey instead?" Right? That would actually replace that would have replaced the username, password, and the OTP. Sounds good, right? Sounds like, oh wow, next time I don't have to do an OTP, I don't have to do a password. But guess what? Those can be shared. That's the thing. If you just use the browser-based passkeys, those are not necessarily safe. Those can be shared to your phone. Those are shared through all of your systems. If you have like a, you know, like a, say you're all Apple centric, those could be shared across all your devices. Android probably very similar. You can share across different devices. You could share it to somebody else. Somebody could trick you into sharing it. So I actually look at that as, if it's that form of a passkey, it's not actually, there's some security obviously built into it, but maybe not as secure as people are thinking about. And I'm not sure the risks are worth it just yet.
So, Chris, well, and Chris, you know, I think that I know this from all the work that we do, but would you say that passkeys can also provide some measure of a false sense of security, because when you enable a passkey, it does not turn off the password. In fact, the password is typically your backdoor or your recovery. So the fallback is to legacy methods.
Yep.
And when you, as a user, have a backup plan or the fallback to a password, and yet you didn't use that password for a period of time and you forgot it, that is an easier way for the threat actors to potentially trick you into
It's
like
another, it's
doing
like
a
out of sight, out of
reset.
mind. You kind of forget.
Yes.
Yeah, you forget about it. You might not even, like he was saying, you might even not remember. You know, not even. You're probably just not even aware that it's still an option. Because you're just doing the
Yes.
quickest, fastest, easiest, lowest resistance path. Not necessarily the most secure, and it does leave that other vulnerability open. So again, we're not. That's a whole different conversation. We'll do probably another office hours. I think maybe we have done one or a couple of some of the other podcasts about that. But that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, it does lead you, I think, to a false sense of security. And what we're trying to do here, right, is make it super easy and secure for everybody, so they don't have to think. We don't want you to have to think about any backdoors or what am I not thinking about, right? That's what we're trying to help prevent. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that.
Right. So Chris, where I think you were headed with talking about passkeys is, you know, because we get this other question and we're kind of off on a tangent away from OTPs, but I think it's all related to when and where and why to use an OTP, which you were just explaining. Like, passkeys are growing in some popularity for convenience. They are phishing resistant to a point, particularly if they become a device bound passkey where it can only be used from a specific device, which is similar to how TraitWare does passwordless MFA, right? Like we would, everything we do is device bound, and then and distributed more securely than a shareable. You know, passkey becomes still a shareable secret, right? And if it's a shareable secret, then it's phishable, in my opinion. And I think that the weekly barrage of headline news of this breach in credentials still being the number one attack vector of all of those breaches or misuse. There's even some big ones right now where whether it was across workforce applications like Salesforce had over 1 billion records stolen. They're saying that's through OAuth tokens, which are saying it's bad for the tokens. But if you actually dig through the weeds, it was a credential attack that then led to them being able to capture those tokens. They had to compromise the credentials first. And then in the UK, the government is looking at having to loan Jaguar Land Rover $1.5 billion to keep them up and running because of a recent breach that they suffered from credentials as well.
Yeah, it's
so
always the root is almost always a credential at some point. It's still with those breaches. It's still in the upper 80s, I think.
Yeah.
80%.
So whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching it as a recording, hopefully we've triggered some other things to think about. And if you have questions, both Chris and I are available on LinkedIn. Send us a DM, put a comment in this video. We will do our best to respond to it. If you didn't see last week's Ready Set Cyber that had multiple people on it, Joshua Copeland, Darren Mott, formerly with the FBI, some really good content there, some amazing after the fact and even during the live show comments where just people are really coming up with great things to think about and consider in improving your cyber posture. And each one of us needs to take responsibility, whether we're an employee, whether we're a company owner. If you are connected to the internet, you are on the field of play. And if we want to be able to have a job when tomorrow, we need to take all of these things seriously. Yes, a certain measure of security introduces some level of friction. At TraitWare, we have really set out to reduce that friction as much as possible for at least logging into systems with our primary method, which is passwordless MFA. But we have tried to make it very convenient to be able to do passwordless MFA and OTPs all in one space. And again, if you have any questions, want to see a deeper dive of how all of this works, we would love to give you a demo. And I'd love to answer any questions. And Krista, is there any other key takeaways that you've got?
No, I think that's it. Just keep making those steps towards passwordless, right? Just keep making those small incremental steps. We understand it takes time. We're here to partner with you. We're here to help give you guidance and advice. If you just have some questions, feel free to reach out. We'll give you our thoughts.
Yeah, and if you're an existing managed service provider that's already working with us, and you just got the news of now having parity between iOS and Android, and have questions, they both work awesome for OTPs. And I know we've got some other exciting news coming out, delivering some automation for our customers and managed service providers to make the administrators' lives even more efficient and better also. And as I think we're actually going to wrap up maybe about a minute and a half early here in our 30-minute window. But thank you for joining us today. We are here to help in any way we can, and we are excited to move people to passwordless, but support them across app-based authentication in all methods. But we won't do SMS ever, that's bad.
All right, thanks everyone. Have a good day.